Hello, I'm Carly with the Oracle Applications Users Group. Welcome everyone to this session of Improve Your Chances, Submit Successful Conference Papers. Before we get started, I would like to go over a couple housekeeping items. You will be on mute throughout the presentation. If you would like to ask a question, please type it into the question box in your control panel. Once the presentation has concluded, I will read the questions back so the presenter can respond. We are recording this session and it will be available to attendees online shortly. I would like to introduce your presenters, Melissa Sider and Kaveri Nayak.
All right, thank you so much, Carly, and welcome everyone. We appreciate your joining us. Welcome to our webinar on how to improve your chances by submitting successful conference papers. Kaveri and I will be your hosts today, and we'll go ahead and get started. First, we're going to talk about our agenda. We're going to go through some introductions and credentials. We'll talk about some tips and tricks for paper selection, and then we'll open the floor to some panel discussion. If you have specific ideas or topics that you want to bounce off of us, we'll be happy to do that as well. So as far as introductions are concerned, in the past, I have played the role of agenda chair. Those are two different roles. The agenda chair is responsible for the paper selection process, whereas the conference chair is responsible for the overall conference itself. And I am a long-term part of the education committee. I have played the role of chair and vice chair for that organization, as well as a variety of different roles, seeking out new opportunities.
Yes, this is Kaveri Nayak. I'm, like Melissa said, I'm the agenda chair for Collaborate couple of years, the education committee for OAUG for a few years now. It's related with OAUG. With that, I will pass it on to Melissa.
Thanks. All right, so we're going to take a moment and we're going to look at the OAUG paper selection process. And I do want to stress again that this is specific to the event occurs. There's a group, the SEC, which is made up of individuals from OAUG, IOUG, and Quest. All three groups put on Collaborate. That is part of the root of the name. We are collaborating with multiple user groups and Oracle to put on a single event. So the three individual groups meet together and come together to define the list of tracks that will be offered at any given conference, and they do change year over year. Once the tracks are finalized, which has happened, the education committee and the GeoSig leaders, or the special interest group leaders within the OAUG, work collaboratively to define a wish list. And a wish list is a list of items that we want delivered at the upcoming conference. And those suggestions or ideas or requests for paper topics are listed out by track, the type of papers that we want. You all should have received an email message yesterday or the day before stating that the call for papers for Collaborate 15 is now currently open and will be open through October 10th. Once the call for papers opens, we have a sidebar process where we search for people to vote on the papers. And that is happening actually now that the call for papers has opened. Individuals over a 2-month period are submitting paper ideas and abstracts. You don't have to submit a fully baked paper. Basically, you're writing a title, an abstract, which is a paragraph describing what your presentation would be about, and you're listing 3 to 5 learning objectives on what you hope people would take away from your presentation. On October 10th, the call for papers will close. At that time, no further presentation submissions will be possible. There is a brief process where the conference committee goes through and just does a double check to make sure that presentations have been submitted in the appropriate track. And you'll see why that's important as I get a little further on in the process. The next thing that happens is we do, for 7 to 10 days, open up all of the conference paper submissions for voting. Individuals can go in, they read the title, they read the abstract, but they cannot see the name of the presenter or the company of the presenter. So we call that blind voting. They're just voting on the idea. Do they like the idea? Do they dislike the idea? Does the idea sound like it's very salesy? Does the idea, and they're reading about papers in their areas, and they're making a determination and voting on each one of those papers. You can see why it's important then that papers be put in their correct track, because we get over 1,500 papers submitted to this conference, and it's virtually impossible for any person to vote on all 1,500 papers in the 7 to 10 day period that the voting is open. Therefore, we need an ability to go in and look for papers where we have some knowledge or some area of expertise so that we can vote on the papers that are on topics on which we're knowledgeable. Once the voting closes, the scores for each individual papers are used to rank the papers from highly desirable papers to papers that we don't think we want to include. Those papers, the list of those papers is then given to track leaders by track or by topic area, and the track leaders use that feedback, that input, and those votes to build their room. Now, the room build occurs by a subgroup of people. Again, these are leaders of the Education Committee members, and leaders of each individual special interest and GEO group. SIG and GEO leaders are all contacted prior to the voting and paper selection process and asked to participate in the selection process for the Collaborate event. Once those groups meet and discuss the paper options in their tracks, they do select those papers. They do slate them into a particular track or room, and from there the agenda becomes finalized as we get kind of closer to the event. Now, about 5 months in advance we'll know which papers are selected, but we won't actually have a schedule until 2 to 3 months before the event occurs, and that's when the agenda builder is released, and you as attendees have the opportunity to actually schedule sessions at specific times and dates as an attendee. So that's basically the selection process. So just to recap, there's a wish list that defines what we're looking for. There's an open call for papers where users submit their ideas, and they're just ideas, not fully baked papers and presentations. Then there's a period of voting, which is a wider audience. We try to get as many people as possible to vote on papers so that we have a good sampling of opinions on each paper that's submitted. And then based on the votes, the paper selection committees use that information to determine the final papers that are going to be selected. All right, then we're going to go ahead and move on to some tips and tricks for success. 15 years. Easy to understand. So it all starts with an idea. In all of the organizations that I've worked with, the first thing people struggle with when submitting a topic for a conference is, I don't know what to submit. So for that reason, we've created the wish list. I would recommend, if you're looking for a topic idea, go and browse through the wish list and see if there's anything on that list that sounds familiar to you or is something that you would feel comfortable talking about, or an experience that you've had with your own implementation or your own technical situation. But there was no place that really showed from handy-dandy how to step A through Z to describe that process to folks who might want to implement that feature. So if you've ever had trouble with a particular function, or if there is a particular issue that you had, those make great paper topics, because the chances are if you've had trouble with those particular functions or features, other people have as well, and your valuable input. You want topics that are advanced, that utilize advanced features that are for people who are old veterans of the Collaborate conferences. So we try to get a wide variety from basic to advanced and span all of the different application groups, all of the different technical groups, all of the different technology stacks that are outlined in our track selection process. Another good idea is to seek input and guidance from your peers. Particularly if you work in a consulting firm or you have a consulting paper, we do recommend that you submit your papers early. The call for papers is open. This makes it very difficult for us to ensure that papers are submitted in the correct track. If you submit your paper early, we're going to see it during our reporting process, and we're going to be able to make sure it absolutely gets into the right bucket so that it's fully considered in the voting process and fully considered by the selection team. So getting your paper in early and submitting more than one idea. We don't recommend that you submit the same idea under multiple titles, but conference, it's a law of averages. Out of 1,500 papers, last year we selected about 500, which is 1 in 3 papers. A little bit corny sometimes, but if you can create a goal. Also, grammar counts. When you do have a paper accepted by the Collaborate event, number one, you do get a free conference pass to the event, full conference pass, which means that you can use that to attend other sessions and enhance your own knowledge of the Oracle products. But in addition, as part of your responsibility as a presenter, you do have to submit both a presentation, which is a PowerPoint document, as well as a white paper. If you are having trouble getting we use good grammar, that we're very clear and articulate in our descriptions in our abstracts, and that will also increase the likelihood that our paper will be voted on favorably and then therefore selected in the selection process. Now, here at my organization, when we submit papers, all paper abstracts go through a review process internally before they're submitted to any conference. If you don't have that facility time, you can ask us. We are going to be solidifying their ideas and drafting their paper abstracts. And then finally, we do suggest that you co-present with other organizations. And here's what I mean by that. If you have a partner, a consultant partner that you have worked on projects with, or a trusted advisor, we do suggest that you collaborate and team up with them. You, as a user, should be the primary speaker, which is basically to attend the Collaborate event. But collaborate with a vendor so that the two of you is another thing that our organization does. I will tell everyone on this call, we are reducing the overall number of papers that we are going to select this year. So competition is liable to be much more fierce. We anticipate that this year approximately 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 papers will be selected versus 1 in 3. So it's going to be increasingly competitive. And we are going to, this year, we really have a focus on increasing the number of papers that are delivered by users. And we are focusing our attention to selection. Anything you want to comment on about what I said, or anything you want to add before we open it up to the floor?
I think you covered, Melissa, pretty much everything. Again, if anybody is thinking who is in this call of submitting papers, please go ahead, do it as soon as you can. If you need any kind of assistance, help from us, let us know. Like Melissa already mentioned, we will be having a couple of one-hour conference calls where you can bring up your ideas. We can help you for making or solidifying your abstract.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kaveri. Carly, the lines if someone raises their hand with a question.
Thank you, Melissa and Kaveri. We don't have any questions at the moment, but let's give everybody a chance to either type them in or raise your hand. You do have a question box in your control panel. We'll give everyone a minute.
Okay, fabulous. I know there are a lot of good ideas out there just waiting to be hatched, and I'm here to help you bring those to fruition. So don't be shy.
It does not seem that we have any questions. So thank you to Melissa and Kaveri for your presentation. As Melissa mentioned, we will have opportunities for you to be in touch with some of our experts for your participation. And this session has been recorded, and if you need to reference anything, it will be available on the OAUG website.